Hi guys, and welcome back to Juliet Studio. Today we're going to be doing a really fun tutorial of making these little blown vessels that you can hang anywhere that you would like. So let's get started.
So before I light the torch, let me show you a bit how I hold my hollow blow mandrel. So I hold it with like an overhand grip like this, and I have my little wooden thing to balance it, because at the end here I have this brass coupler, and it's a little bit weighty, and this is about the middle point, so it's balanced. This tube coming out I put over the top of my arm, and then I have the rest of the tube go up and around my neck, and then I have the little blow piece that I can just put in my mouth. So I find that this kind of a configuration keeps it from getting tangled. I can rotate it and turn it as I need, and it keeps that coupler in a relatively straight direction, so it doesn't bind up. They do sell some of the couplers with a 90-degree angle. The one I happen to have is straight, so this works for me. You may need to adapt your setup slightly differently though. Okay, so I'll light the torch and let's get started. Safety first, make sure that if you have a lighter like this with a plastic case, that it is stored somewhere safe and away from flying glass. Mine is in a drawer under my workbench. Those things can explode if they get hot glass with the propellant that's in it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is wind on some clear glass onto the end of the mandrel. And we want to just put it flush with the face of it and not build it up around the mandrel, because we're going to be taking it back off. I'm not using any bead release or anything. So I have my blowpipe in my mouth, so forgive me if I sound funny. So you want to get the end of the blow tube a little hot in order to get the glass on it. And I'm going to start by just putting a very tiny thin ring just on the edge. I am barely covering up a millimeter on the end there. And I'm going to build up a little bit of glass, and then I'm going to close it off, and the next step is to put a little bit of a tiny air bubble in it. And this is the part where it's nice to be able to blow with the tube and see what you're doing. So I'm going to get the glass hot enough so it can move, and then I'm going to put just a super tiny little puff of air in there. I'm not going to blow while it's in the flame. I'm going to take it out of the flame, let a bit of a skin cover it, and then I'm going to push. And then I'm also going to heat up the end of the mandrel, about maybe an inch or so before you get to the hot glass. That will help the air expand and create that bubble. And we're going to look real carefully, and we just want to create a tiny bubble in there. So maybe it is about half. You have half of the thickness is glass and half of the thickness is the air bubble, so 50-50. Okay, so you can see that little bubble. I'm going to let this cool off a little bit and preserve that bubble. Next, I'm going to add glass around it and build up the volume of glass that I have. Having that little bubble there will make it much easier to blow this out later. So I like to do a round of glass and then leave a gap and then put another round of glass. The process is similar to one I learned in classes I took with both Lydia Muell and Astrid Riedel. You want to melt this in. At this point, I do not have my tongue over the mouthpiece, so I want to let that air, I don't want it to expand. If I kept my tongue over the mouthpiece, the heat would make it expand and would often pop the bubble. So when you're practicing this, I suggest use clear or a light transparent. That'll let you see the bubble. It'll help you get a bit better control. Now I'm going to add another ring and add more glass. Now sometimes I pause and I'm looking at the thickness of the glass on the outside of the bubble. And if the outside of the glass is a little warm and can flow, if you put that thick part on top, it will help balance out the shape and the size and the wall thickness. And again, while I'm melting, I do not close up the air tube because I don't want it to pop. After I get it mostly melted in, then I will cover the end of the tube with my tongue to stabilize the bubble. If I need it to grow a bit, I will heat up a bit of the mandrel. I didn't actually blow there, it just grew on its own because of the heat in the mandrel, and that the temperature causes the air to expand. At this point, I want to keep the walls fairly thick because I'm going to eventually add frit, and then I'm going to blow it out to size. So I'm just trying to preserve my bubble in there and make it easy on me later. I'll do one more round of glass. I tend to use a smaller, slower, incremental approach of adding glass. Some people make a big gather and put it on there. I don't know, it tends to get a little unwieldy. Maybe it's just because I haven't made thousands of these yet. But that's sort of the way I approach it. When I'm adding the glass, I'm putting it kind of in stripes because I don't want to encapsulate bubbles in there. Because when you blow out those bubbles, they become these little thin caverns, and they can easily pop. It makes the wall much more fragile. Doing it this way, it will melt the glass in, and the wall thickness will all even out. So I find it much less likely to create extra bubbles in the thickness of your wall. Okay, so next step, I want to heat it up towards the mandrel a bit, and I want to make sure I preserve that air bubble, and I'm going to use the diamond shears and go around it and kind of nudge that down that way to make a bit of a neck. Now the shears are cool, so they will help cool it off. You don't want to squeeze it down so much that you close it off and you pinch off a hollow bubble in the end and you can't get air into it. So I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to focus a little bit more on sort of the shoulder area there. And then I'm just going to put my tongue over the end while I'm doing this so that I'm not losing air. And it will not be in the flame while I'm doing this. I'm going to take it out, let a bit of the skin form, and then we're going to shape it here. Okay, you can see now I have a little bit of an offset with the neck, and that will become like the neck of my vessel. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to add frit to the vessel. You could have done this beforehand too. I'm going to heat up the outside enough so that frit will stick to it. And I'm going to just roll it around the frit maillage bowl. And now I'm going to melt that in. And then once I have that melted in a bit, I'm going to attach a rod to the end and I'm going to twist it just to introduce some swirls. And I'm going to be careful while I'm doing that I close off the end of the blow tube with my tongue so I don't collapse my bubble. I'm not totally holding my tongue on it now because I don't want it to pop because it's hot. But in a second, I'm going to close it up with my tongue and I'm going to twist it. And then I'll do the next step. Go in again. There we go. Okay, so it distorts it a little. I'm going to melt this off of the top. I just used a little bit of a clear short rod here to get the twist in there. Clear there, okay. I gotta melt this back in and reshape it. I want to be careful at this point that I'm not going to lose my bubble, so I'm heating sort of from the tip back down towards the shoulder. At this point it's getting hard to see my bubble, but I can tell it's still in there. All right, I'm gonna heat a little bit more, and then I'm gonna blow it into my desired shape. And I'm gonna have my little thing at the end because I'm gonna want to make a little bit of a point at the end. So let me get the heat in it. And after I have the heat in, I'm gonna take it out of the flame, and then I'm gonna blow it to the shape I want. I want to try to get it round because the rounder it is before you begin, the better the shape will be after you blow. All right. And polish the tip a bit. All right. So now next spot, I'm going to decide where I'm going to hang my handle. And I want it to, I guess, hang like that. So I'm going to put one small dot on the neck of the vessel right there. And I'm going to put another small dot partway down the side of the vessel here. And then I'm going to kind of build up some dots and connect them in a bridge, and that will become my little one-sided hanging handle for my vessel. I'm building them up, melting them in, using gravity to kind of fill them in. I need a good secure join to the base of the vessel. Melting it in, letting it flatten down and widen. I don't want them to touch yet. I need to build them up a little bit further. And then I will connect them, and then I can go in with my graphite reamer and kind of open it up and shape it and do some final touch-ups on the handle. Okay, so just about ready to touch them. Put a dot there, let gravity pull it down. And I need to add a little bit more glass to get an even thickness on my handle. I've got about the right amount of glass here, so I want to heat it from both sides. Go in and shape it a little bit from both sides, make sure it's even. Okay, so now the next step is to get it off of the mandrel. And so I have my little coated tongs. And to do this, I'm going to heat up the mandrel. I don't want to touch the neck of the little vessel, but I want to heat this area up here. And what I'm doing is getting the metal hot enough so that I can pull the glass off of it. You can see it's getting a little wiggly, so it's almost hot enough. Have a good grip of it. Just tap those edges off. I can put my blowpipe down, and then we're going to fire polish and open this up a little bit if I need to. So I'm careful not to get my tongs into the flame. I'm just fire polishing that opening a bit. That looks pretty good. Into the kiln it goes.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this really fun blown vessel tutorial. As always, please subscribe to the channel and check out the full playlist for all of the lampworking tutorials with Juliet, and happy lampworking!